Look out, Pac-12. Look out, college football. Here comes the Stanford Cardinal. No longer looking like the team we saw in week one, just bludgeoned Arizona 55-17 on Saturday night at home. We bring in Don King from Last Word on Sports to help us break down what has become not just a juggernaut, Don, but an offensive juggernaut. We didn't see this coming.
No, the Stanford fan faithful, we were in full-on panic mode after the debacle in Evanston. And it lasted another quarter and a half at home against Central Florida before the first offensive touchdown of the year finally got punched in. And since then, the offense has just rolled and clicked and looked like it did, back in Andrew Luck's heyday 3 or 4 years ago. It's looking fantastic right now on the offensive side of the football. And some of the youngsters that it's always hard to project how a freshman's going to do in the step up to FBS Division I level. And some of the freshmen are making huge contributions. And, Kevin Hogan is playing like Kevin Hogan again, despite the gimpy ankle. So the upcoming week off is going to help him a lot. And Christian McCaffrey is everything that we all had hoped he would be and then some. And he currently leads the FBS in all-purpose yardage after 5 games, which is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, 156 on the ground for McCaffrey, plus a touchdown rushing, plus everything he does in the return game and receiving. He is just a bolt of lightning all over the place. He touches the football.
Yeah,
he's this. I want to get to, Don. Is the matchup that we actually got right. So with everything crazy in college football and all the unexpected things that happened, the one thing that we matched up and it came into fruition was the Arizona defense, smallish, and getting pushed around against UCLA, and we just kind of magnified what that could look like against Stanford, and it came to be.
Yeah, it did. No Scooby Wright equaled no chance last night. The defense lacked toughness. He's the defensive play caller that lacked leadership and organization. And that 3-3-5 alignment is really tricky to prepare for. But the one thing it does not do well is match up against and stop a power running game. And the Tunnel Workers Union, the Stanford offensive line last night was absolutely dominant. I mean, Joshua Garnett on a screen pass to Ramon Wright led the way and absolutely destroyed a cornerback for Arizona for Wright's 16-yard touchdown reception. I feel bad for the kid. He's going to be having nightmares about number 51 in red bearing down on him. It's just it was not a fair fight.
So when you get that kind of traction in the ground game, then it makes an easy night for Kevin Hogan. He was pretty efficient and not needing to do a whole lot and shoulder a lot of the offense.
That is correct. He's still gimpy on that sprained ankle that he suffered a couple of weeks back in the gutsy win against Southern Cal, but he gutted through it against Oregon State. And honestly, last night was probably the best game I've seen him play. I mean, which is saying something given, Pac-12 championship games and, his performance in last year's bowl game in the Foster Farms Bowl as well. Yeah, he went 17 for 19 last night with 2 touchdowns. I mean, he was virtually flawless, and that's on 1.5 good legs. I mean, he's not 100%. From my understanding, he's not really that close to 100%. He didn't limp as badly last night as we've seen in the last couple of weeks. But the bye week is great timing for him to get him a little bit of rest, get that thing close to 100% for UCLA in a week and a half. But he was masterful in his online his checks at the line and play calling. He did a great job.
So you've got an offensive line that pushes the other team all over the place and does whatever it wants to, completely manhandles the front seven. You got maybe one of the top playmakers at running back in college football, leading the nation in all-purpose yardage, and the ball hits the ground through the air twice.
Right.
So that's pretty much the perfect formula. Not surprising that adds up to 570 yards of total offense.
Yeah. and the second consecutive week over 300 yards rushing. That had never happened during the Harbaugh-Shaw era at Stanford. And these have been some fantastic rushing teams through the years, over the last 7-8 years now. But back-to-back 300-yard rushing efforts, that's exactly the identity Stanford wants to have.
And then if we flip it to defense, apparently the front seven for the Cardinal dominated this game, because Nick Wilson is one of the better rushers in college football. And even when he's getting any kind of room, he's going to push people. He's going to break tackles. He's going to usually grind out another 1.5 yards at the end of a run. But that wasn't happening a whole lot with 46 yards on the ground for Nick Wilson.
That's right. And he was the bright spot against UCLA. Arizona had an otherwise very disappointing performance at home the previous week. Wilson had a very strong game there and perhaps exposed the UCLA defensive front in particular a little bit. And just a quick aside, boy, do they miss Miles Jack. My goodness, that showed up last night for them. So at any rate, Wilson, it was a little bit of an easy task for Lance Anderson and the Stanford defense to just key on Wilson. Noah knew Solomon. He didn't even board the plane from Tucson out to Palo Alto because of that concussion. So, you got an inexperienced, relatively inaccurate young quarterback. You just key on Wilson, shut down the run, and the rest of it, frankly, is pretty easy.
Yeah, and Don, we bring you on here not just for the Stanford analysis, but the Pac-12 through and through. And this kid, Gerard Randall, he's basically a dynamic running back having to throw the ball.
That's right.
Just can't fill the shoes of the new Solomon at this stage of his development. So Arizona, if they don't get Scooby Wright and a new Solomon, your quarterback and your team leader and captain on defense, that says a ton for any team. But considering their lack of depth, tenacity, fight on defense, and considering the backup quarterback situation, it's magnified on this team.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And let's not forget, Scooby Wright is the reigning Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year. So there's the leadership and the fire and the spirit. He's also a pretty daggone good football player. So that's a lot not to have at your disposal. It hurts really badly. It showed up almost instantly last night, and frankly, they missed him all night long.
Okay, Don, we said it last week when we talked about the big Pac-12 matchups for the weekend. Arizona going to Stanford, Arizona State going to UCLA. They look like two routes for the home teams. But we know college football, and something's going to turn, something's going to change. A team's going to show up, and somebody else may have an off night. Yep. Well, fortunately for you, that didn't happen in Palo Alto. That happened at the Rose Bowl, and now UCLA's got a loss. Now you both have some time to rest up. You got to bye, and you meet the Bruins coming up in about, that's going to be about 10 or 12 days from now.
Yep. Yeah, it's fascinating. And you'll remember we did the preview show last Wednesday night, and I was nervous about this because I think I may even have said one of these games is not going to go the way we think it will. Thank goodness for my Cardinal, it was the other one. And boy, did it not go the way we thought it would. It's going to be interesting. I expect UCLA to bring a lot of fight a week from Thursday. They're still in the thick of the Pac-12 South race. All of their goals are still ahead of them. They went out, they beat Utah, they beat Southern Cal, they beat Stanford. They're still going to be the Pac-12 South champs, and they know that. They're going to need a little bit of time to regroup and reconvene and lick their wounds a little bit. I think they may have had higher aspirations and candidly may have gotten caught looking ahead of yesterday's matchup with Arizona State, which is an incredibly dangerous thing to do. But frankly, everything that they want is still in front of them. I expect a really hungry Bruin team to come. I expect a very well thought out, aggressive game plan. And I think it's going to be a fantastic college football game. The UCLA team that I expect to see at Stanford Stadium a week from Thursday is not going to be the UCLA team that showed them in the Rose Bowl yesterday.
And that's the saving grace in the Pac-12, is that, forget the college football playoff for a second in terms of overall record. While you're facing the brutal schedule, you pretty much are rest assured that your competition is facing the brutal schedule as well. So it just keeps coming and coming and coming. And there are very, very few soft spots in the Pac-12, and we see it each and every week.
Yep. Yeah, I'll tell you, the one team in the whole conference that's absolutely sitting pretty right now is Utah. They look great. And that win over Michigan looks better by the week. They look fantastic. I think they're the most complete, well-balanced team in the conference right now, and thank goodness they're not on Stanford's regular season schedule. So first potential meeting between them and Stanford would be the Pac-12 championship game. But I'll tell you, watch the Utes. They look like a really, really good and dangerous team, and the kind of team that's built to do really well in a college football playoff.
Yeah, I'm scanning the conference. Everybody's got a loss, at least one, except for Utah.
Except for Utah and California.
Oh, so, Cal beat Washington. Cal beat Washington State. Yes.
So that'll change this week with game day on hand in Salt Lake City. Yeah, if Cal plays like they did yesterday, they'll lose by 5 touchdowns, though. So they're going to have to step their game up a little bit to go to altitude in Salt Lake City and take off that complete Utah team. They will get hammered if they don't play much better.
Yeah, it's maybe not fair in the Pac-12 to go from Washington State to Utah the way those two teams are playing right now, but that's the way it sets up for Cal.
Yes, it does.
John. Good stuff. Stanford rolling 55-17 over Arizona. We'll next time see the Cardinal taking on UCLA in 2 weeks. Don King from Last Word on Sports joining us to break down the Cardinal and the Pac-12. Thanks a lot, Don.
Thank you, Mark. Have a great weekend.